Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be exploring another topic that a lot of you have been asking for, which is a little bit of Mesh. Mesh is a really interesting plugin inside of Maya, and similarly to Xgen, it's really deep. Like, you can do a lot of super complex stuff with it. I know the basics of it, so I'm going to be showing you some of the introduction or introductory things. We also cover some of them inside of our Intro to Maya course, so if you want to check that one out, make sure to go into the description. But yeah, let's get to it. So I was thinking about like a nice exercise to do with Mesh and how we can use it, and we're gonna be using or we're gonna be doing a candy like a candy jar. So you've probably seen this sort of things like this, right? And it might seem a little bit difficult to do, or not difficult, but tedious, right? Like, I know all of you or most of you who know about 3D could do something like this, but what if there's like an easy way to do it? Or maybe you want to do something a little bit more complex, like cookies or something. Well, Mesh is a really powerful tool that we can use to create exactly that. So first of all, in the same way as what we worked with, or when we worked with Xgen, we need to turn it on. So settings and preferences, plugin manager, and we need to make sure that Mesh is turned on. There we go. So now that Mesh is turned on, we are going to have access to it. And I think this one does have the effects tab turned on. Yeah, here, the Mesh network. And the way Mesh works is actually very simple. You start with any geometry that you want, like this sphere right here, and then you go into the Mesh node and you create a Mesh network. And the Mesh network, which is this little button right here, will create or will start using nodes to create instances of your geometry. So these 10 spheres that we're seeing right here are not the original sphere. You can actually see that they got like, they are now, that the original sphere is now hidden, and all of these guys are what's happening here. So the repro mesh is reproducing these things, and right now we're using this first node, which is the most basic node, which is the mesh distribute. And the mesh distribute node, as you can see right here, is very simple. You just select how many times you want to duplicate this guy or instance this guy, in this case 10, but I can say like 100, and then you select the distance that those guys are gonna like occupy. So for instance, I can say, I don't know, 500. So now I have 100 spheres distributed along 500 units, so that's like 5 meters. And I mean, if that's what you want, if you just want to duplicate something like a lot of times, mesh is also really useful, because as you can see right here, like my computer is moving super fast because these are not copies. Each object is just an instance of the original sphere that we have over here. So in the mesh distribute node, there are a lot of things that we can change. For instance, so seeing linear, we can see radial. Let's, of course, lower the intensity, and now we can distribute the spheres in a radial fashion. So, I don't know, let's say you're doing like some sort of decoration or something. This could also be helpful. I use Mesh a lot to model things. So, there's, let me show you an example. Like, if I were doing like a hydrant, I could grab like one of the bolts. There's a lot of ways to do it, but like if you want to duplicate like this sort of like bolts that you have down here, you can model one and then use Mesh to decide how many you want to have along the surface. So again, there's a lot of cool things that Mesh can do besides just the creation of instances. Now you have the spherical, so it's gonna fill a spherical volume. Of course, the more elements you have, the more spheres you're gonna be getting there. You can change the radius. And one of the cool things about Mesh is used a lot for motion graphics. And Mesh was actually the answer from Maya to Cinemas for the really powerful like motion graphic tools. And with Mesh, any single slider that you see here can be animated. So let me go back to like the general option here. Let's go. Where's Mesh? Mesh to our thing here. So I could go to like frame 1 and say, hey, I want no spheres. Right click, set key, and then frame 120, and go to like I want to have, I don't know, 66 spheres, and then again right click, set key, and then I want to say like maybe in frame 1 the radius is like 0, and again right click, set key, and then the frame 120 the radius is like really big, like 20. And now if I take a look at the animation, this is what we have. Spheres are going to start appearing, and they're going to start creating like a nice little sphere. So imagine trying to animate 66 spheres to do exactly that. It would be a nightmare, right? That's why Mesh is so powerful, because it allows you to have this sort of procedural tools that are going to allow you to create very complex things in a relatively short period of time. So yeah, let's just go back here. Let's add more stuff here. So that's spherical. We have mesh. Mesh is really cool. So let's say we have like a complex mesh, such as like a letter. So I'm just gonna say, yeah, that one. That one's fine. So 3D type. I can grab this guy. Let's go to the outliner. Go into mesh distribute, and if I middle mouse and drag this type mesh to this input mesh right here, As you can see now, I'm using the mesh as a source to where this guys should be, to where the elements should be distributed. Of course, the more we have, the more we're gonna get, and there's ways to do it on the mesh. It can be scatter, it can be on each vertex, it can be random vertex, it can be voxel, and you're gonna get this very nice effect. So super crazy things, super crazy cool things that you can do with mesh. But as I mentioned today, I want to talk about dynamics, because mesh has dynamics and they're really, really, really cool. So before we do this, let's delete this guys right here. There we go. So we'll get back to our original sphere. One thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reduce the size of the sphere. I'm gonna say like 8 and 8, because I know when I smooth this, it's gonna look a little bit better, and it's gonna be lighter, which is important right now. We're gonna freeze the transformation, delete history, center pivot, just to keep this super, super clean. We can even go into mesh display and say soft on edge, just to get like a softer version of the whole thing. Now let's create a placeholder. This is gonna be a placeholder for the jar of candies that we wanna fill. And let's say we wanna fill this jar of candies, something like this. So I need to delete the upper faces so that we have like a nice shape, and I need to reverse the normal. So I'm gonna reverse. And just to be safe, I'm actually going to give this guy thickness. Like this. There we go. So now we can say mesh display, again, reverse, and there we go. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to bring this guy to the side. Really doesn't matter where the original one's going to be. And I am going to go into mesh. So I'm going to go mesh. I'm going to create a mesh node, a mesh network. You can see that by default we go into the mesh distribute, which is fine. And what I want to do is I want to distribute, but I don't want to do linear. I want to do a grid distribution. And the grid distribution, as you can see, is going to give me, in this case, 3 by 3, because we have this 3 by 3 grid. Let's say we want like quite a bit of candy, like, I don't know, 500 candies or something. So I'm going to say 5, or let's do like 10 by 10, and then by 5, right? So that's 500 candies, I believe. Now, of course, we need to increase the distance between the candies a little bit. And here. And here. So as you can see now, we got this nice little grid of candies everywhere. And here's where the fun's gonna start. Let me move this thing for a second just to show you what I'm about to do. Hopefully my computer doesn't crash, because this is a little bit heavy for dynamics, but we can do it. I'm gonna add a dynamics node right here. And what the dynamics node does is it adds a bullet solver. So it's using the bullet system to just like get everything to work. So if I hit play right now, what you're gonna see is all of the little spheres are gonna fall down. And as you can see, there's a floor right there, and they're just gonna spill all over the floor, which is also a great way to do I don't know, like random stuff. Like I've done this to create like garbage piles and stuff. I would just do like instances, let them drop and let them fall like randomly, instead of having to manually place them, because at any point I can just grab this repro mesh, Control D to duplicate it, and now that thing right there, it's its own mesh. And as you can see, I can go back and do another like animation. So really, really handy. But yeah, this is what's happening right now. Again, we have this bullet solver, and this bullet solver is creating the animation. It's simulating the dynamic particles of these elements, and now they're just like falling into the ground. And as you can see, they kind of push into each other. They barely touch, which is great, because that's exactly what I want. But we don't want them to fall into the ground. This is the floor plane, which, as you can see right here, it's -20 on the position. We can bring this up to like 0, and now the spheres are... Whoop. I think we might need to move the whole thing up. No, there we go. So now the spheres fall right there. So it is important to have a floor, because otherwise the spheres would just fall like all the way into the infinity, and we don't want that. And now we're just gonna bring this guy back to its origin, so 0. And we might wanna do something here. So I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna add another node, which is called the offset, or not the offset, the transform node. And with the transform node selected, what I can do is I can position this. Let's go into the mesh node. There we go. So I can move this thing, the position here on the y-axis, and I can say like 100 units. And that, as you can see, it's gonna move all of the spheres 100 units into the top part. Now I'm gonna create another polygon here. I'm gonna create a cone. Let me add a couple of divisions, because I want to create like a funnel to make sure that most of my spheres fall into where I want them to fall. And let's do like 2 divisions there, 3 divisions. I'm gonna erase this guys right here. Rotate this around. There we go. Let's delete that face as well. Might increase this guy right here as well. Delete history, freeze transformation, center pivot, and mesh display reverse. We need normals to be facing forward. So now, technically, if my calculations are correct, I should be able to simulate, and when we simulate, all of these guys are gonna fall, and they will follow the funnel and fall into the thing. But of course, nothing is happening right now, and the reason why nothing's happening right now is because we have not defined these guys as colliders. So I'm gonna grab both of them. Again, phrase transformation, very important phrase transformation. We're gonna go into the bullet solver, and here on the collider objects, we can just like middle mouse drag and drop, like the cone, there we go, and the cylinder. So now both elements are working as colliders. And if I hit play, as you can see now, they will try their best to funnel the whole thing. Now it is working. I can definitely see that it is working. The little spheres are falling down and into the tunnel, or into the little glass jar there. But I need way more time for this to happen. So I'm gonna do 1,000. This will make your computer go really slow because there's a lot of calculation that your computer is trying to do. So just keep that into consideration. The faster your processor, the faster this will be. You can see one of those guys just went into the infinity, which is fine. Let's just wait until this whole thing fills up. And yeah, that looks good. Things are filling up. Perfect. Let's wait for them to settle a little bit. And we stop. There we go. So now we have successfully filled this nice little jar with candy. And yeah, it looks good. I won't be able to delete that one just yet. Later on, we will be able to do it. But right now, I want to use the mesh network to finish up, or to start working with the renders and stuff, okay? So very important here. I am going to go... I think it's to mesh dynamics, and I'm gonna turn off the dynamics node so that if I oh, no, I lost the simulation. I thought we could go back. That's fine. Let's just simulate again, but that means that I need to bring back the funnel. There we go. Let me just pause real quick so that I can finish the simulation, and I'll show you how to add some cool colors. Cool. So now I had to check my notes because we're going to be doing something about color. I still need to rerun this. We're going to have to talk about cache later on. But for now, I just want to focus on the, what's the word? On the basic like simulation and on the colors of the little guys, okay? So let's stop this thing like right here when we have a lot of this stuff happening. And we can actually turn this guys off, and we're going to get this very cool looking shape. And we can render this. Like everything here is renderable. So let me add the like skydome light. Let's bring like any of the files that we normally use here in our Nexttut live. So we have, let's go for this one, decor shop. There we go. And if we were to like focus right here and we render, as you can see, the little particles are rendering. Like we can get like anything here because this is geometry. It's instance geometry, but it's geometry. Now there's a very nice, cool little trick. Let me pull out my notes here. Because this is one of the things that I use it, but not as much. So that's why I have my little notebook here and how to do all of the mesh effects that I like to do. So here's what I'm gonna do, or what we're gonna do. We're gonna add a very nice like color randomizer to the whole thing to make it look like candies. Okay. So there's actually a node here called the color node. So if we go here and we go into color node, what we can do here is we can add like random hues and select like a color, and we're gonna get boom. Random colors, just like that. The problem is this information right now is being injected into the vertex colors of the elements. And Arnold has absolutely no way to know how to get that information from the mesh network. So that's why we need to do a little bit of things here to make it work. So here's what we're going to do. In order to render this, we need to go into the repro mesh, which is this one right here. And we need to go into the Arnold setup. No, here, repro. And down here in output attributes, we need to make sure that color per vertex is set to on. Okay, first one, good. The next one, we need to assign an Arnold shader to the whole thing. So I'm going to assign a new material, Arnold shader, standard surface. And let's call this M candies. There we go. Then we are going to go in the color set, in the color node right here. You're going to see that here on the color set name, that's the name that's being like expelled when we create this sort of like variation. Like Maya knows that this name color set right now is the name that's being used to assign specific colors to all of this like little spheres right here. And we can actually change this. Let me try and see if it works. Sometimes it kind of like bugs out and doesn't work. I'm gonna call this candies set, and we're gonna control C this name because this name is gonna be very, very important. So now if we go back to our what's the word, to our mesh right here, and we go to to the material, we're gonna go to the color of the material, and we're gonna assign another file node. No, nothing like that. There's a specific node called a user. It's over here. AI user data. User data. Color. There we go. And here on the attribute, we're gonna plug in the name of the attribute that we're extracting the data from. And yeah, I think technically, that should be it. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're getting the black color right now because of this element right here. Weird. Okay, let me take a look. This is where I'll always mess it up. AI data color, default value, yeah. Maybe I'm missing something because there was another little thing here on the mesh editor that we also need to take into consideration. So on the mesh color, where is it? There's one more little thing where we need to export the colors out. So there we go, color per vertex. Okay, let's go back to the material. Let's go to the hypershade real quick to check how this thing is plugged in. Instead of using the data color, let's try AI user data. Is it the integer? That would be very weird. No, it's not. It has to be the color. Pretty sure it was the color. Let's give it another shot. Candies set. And the color goes into the base color. There we go. And let's give it another render. No color yet. Okay, let me pause this real quick, figure out what it is. It's probably just some stupid thing that I'm forgetting. Let me check real quick and I'll be right back. Okay, I told you guys it was gonna be something really stupid. I don't know why, but I had to just like turn this off and turn it on again. And that's it. I don't know. Maya. So yeah, there we go. As you can see now, we have all of our very colorful candies are ready to go. And these are all being controlled by this one right here. So at any point I can like lower the roughness if I want to make them like a lot shinier on the specular map. And we can go at any point into the color transformation node here. And we can change, for instance, the randomness and saturation. We can keep the hue like really close together if we want to have like just like a very specific kind of like shade of colors. Or again, if you go here, it's going to be, well, crazy colors. You can change the random value and you can change the seed as well. And all of this can be animated as well. So imagine having an animation where these things are falling into a candy jar and they're changing colors at the same time. Very cool, right? Like we can create some very nice looking things. So now, of course, if we continue the animation here, even though we don't have the objects, it still knows that the collisions are there, so the animation can continue. So let's just wait for this to completely fill up, and we're gonna model the glass jar real quickly. Okay, so let's just wait a little bit more. And there we go. So, boom, perfect. So we stop it right there, and again, if we go into our rendering tab, we have our nice little candies nicely laid out. Again, imagine trying to hand place 500 candies inside of a jar. It would be a nightmare, right? So I'm gonna go to the cylinder. I'm actually gonna duplicate it, unhide it, and this is the one that we're gonna use to create our nice little jar. And it's super simple. So I'm gonna go to this guy right here. Actually, let's isolate it so that we can work on it a little bit better. Probably want to round off the corners on the bottom side. So poly modeling, we are gonna bevel a really small fragment, 2 segments, and then on the top here, let's create like a sort of a lid. So we can actually make it like smaller like this, and then like push it up. This guy and this inner guy, let's bevel them. 2 segments and a small fraction to kind of like give it a round effect. And of course, all of these guys right here, we are going to bevel as well. 2 segments and a small fraction. There we go. So now we have our nice little like glass jar. Let's add a material. So assign a new material, Arnold, AI standard surface. We don't want any color. We want a very low roughness, so it's super transparent. And then the transmission, we're gonna turn the transmission all the way up. You're not gonna see it, but it's there. The jar is there. Let's create a little background here for a setup. So, you know, I love our infinite backgrounds. Oop. Let's go there. Just move this thing up, a little bit up. Number 3, it's gonna smooth it out. Let's move this so that's it's closer there. And we of course need a shot cam. So let's go rendering, create a camera, panels, look through selected. We can turn on wireframe so we can see the jar. Let's turn on this thing right here. It's gonna be our nice little thumbnail. So something like this. Let's rotate this so it's straight with the camera. Perfect. And we can, I think we should add like a lid or something. So, or no, you know what? Let's do, I like when like this glass jars, I'm gonna turn on this little button here, which is gonna give me the basic materials. I like when the jars have like the ridges. So I am gonna polymodel a couple of ridges here. First, let's add some support edges on both sides. So that becomes like a hard surface. There we go. Then we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm gonna grab all of those edges that I just added. I know they're not even, that's fine. There we go. Something like that. And I know this should be like a spiral, but in this case, I think we can get away since it's not a modeling lesson. It's a rendering lesson or mesh lesson. There we go. So now we select camera shape 1, or actually let's close this, Arnold, and render. And we're gonna go to our camera shape 1, and there we go. Our nice little jar of candies. Now, I did mention that we're missing the cache thing. Like right now, if I move the timeline, we lose this, which if we're just doing like a commercial or promotion, it works perfectly fine. But if I move this, it's gone, right? And I don't want that. There's a couple of things I want to manage though. You can see how it looks very dark down here on the glass. So let's change that by going into the options, into the render options. And on the rate depth, we're going to increase this a little bit more. So let's say 4, 4, and like 12. And that should give us a nicer looking glass. There we go. See how this looks more realistic because we have more depth for the rays to go through and analyze each specific part of the surfaces. Let's add a quick light here. You know, I love rendering, so let's decorate this a little bit more. I'm gonna go Arnold lights. Let's do an area light. Let's use just like a very soft area light coming from the top. No need for 3-point lighting or anything. So just like a soft light there. Definitely big exposure. Probably bigger. Bigger. Not so big. 16. There we go. 16 looks a lot nicer. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So I'm gonna stop the tutorial right here. Hopefully, with this, you get an idea of the like powerful or the potency that Mesh has, because it's again a very powerful tool. I think there's like 3 big like areas inside of Maya that are really mysterious because there's not a lot of information out there, but they're really powerful, and that is Xgen, we just saw with the hair, Mesh, and Bifrost. Bifrost is the one that I really don't know as much about. I've been watching like some like documentation and stuff, and it is really interesting what you can do, but that's generally not an area in which I'm specialized. I always like to learn a little bit about everything, but yes, like you're gonna have to pick your battles and pick what things you are the best at, right? So yeah, this is it, guys. This is just a quick basic introduction to Mesh. I will take another look at Mesh next week because this weekend we're gonna be working on the medieval lighthouse. We haven't done anything on that project, and we need to finish it real quick. Well, not real quick, but we should finish it. It's looking nice. So I'm gonna be working on the medieval lighthouse this weekend, and next week in one of the days that I'm going to be showing you some videos, we'll talk about caching, like how to save this animation so that you don't have to simulate every single time you move the timeline. Okay, so yeah, make sure to leave a like, share, subscribe. Let me know if these are topics that are interesting to you, and I'll be happy to share more information. That's it for me now, and I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye bye.